Georgia, where are you?
Hello, hello, hello. I couldn't hear you speaking, so I
Oh,
didn't. I just heard you come on.
all
I
right.
am here. I am here, excited. Greetings to our listening audience. As always, it is Thursday, and I am Georgia F. Allen, your noonday host for GA for Justice.
No
As
doubt.
always, we want to thank Henderson Vaughn, aka the Dream Maker, aka Captain 85, who has opened up the airwaves to bring our listening audience a conversation for information, a conversation for correction, as well as a conversation for transformation. And today's topic is politics, major versus minor league. And a lot has been going on in the area of politics. It's important, as always, for us to stay engaged. And so we're going to talk a little bit about major league versus minor league. And minor league, we're going to start with the minor league first. Are we focused or are we frightened? Because if we're frightened, we're not going to be able to get anything done. If we're frightened, we're going to stay at home because we're going to be too afraid to go out and get engaged. If we're frightened, we're not going to pick up the phone and call up our mayor or our city council members or our House of Delegate members or our school board members because we are frightened. So, what I want to do is kind of give you some little nuggets to hopefully change your behavior because this is all about how we change our behavior so that we have a very different outcome. Because what has been going on in our community, in our city, around the state, and the nation has not always been favorable to our community. So let's talk about what it looks like in the minor league. In the minor league, you vote every year or once every 4 years, and you never ask for anything. That's playing minor league ball. Okay. In the minor league, you sometimes vote as a group, but you never have any demands. That's minor league baseball playing. Okay. That's like a baseball player going out there and he just came out of high school and he goes out and he get on the field and he bats the ball and the best he can do is a bunt. That's minor league, okay? Because there was nobody on base. If you go out and you do a bunt and there's nobody on base, that means you didn't move anybody forward to the second base or the third base or anything else. So you get out and you never make it on base. That's minor league playing in the politics arena. The other thing is if you vote once a year and you don't vote the next time or you never have a list of demands or requests in writing, that's minor league. It's not helpful to vote just one time, okay? To vote and then you say, okay, it didn't work for me, so I'm not going to go back and vote again. Voting in the minor league gives you little or nothing. And most of the time, it gives you absolutely nothing. The other thing that is minor league voting is you vote and then you stop voting because you didn't get everything you wanted. They passed some bills or some policies that you care about, but they didn't get them all passed. So you say, well, it doesn't work. I don't need to vote. But the other thing is, you didn't take a closer look at the fact that those things passed. And if you gave people a little bit more help, you probably can get more things passed and not just small pieces passed. So that's playing in the minor league. The other thing about voting one time or voting and being upset about not getting the things that you want, half of the time you didn't even give them a definitive plan. You didn't even give them an action list or action items. So therefore, if you voted and you didn't get everything you wanted, don't get mad with the legislator, get mad with yourself because there's more work that needs to be done. Playing in the minor league when it comes to politics is you vote, but you never follow up. You never hold your elected officials accountable. You never pick up the phone. You never tell them that, hey, what's going on in my community? And I'll give you an example. Let's say in your community, there have been 35 accidents on the same corner, but that corner didn't have any lights. There was 4 stop signs, no traffic light, anything. And so you had 35 accidents, and you had 4 fatalities. Did you pick up the phone and call the traffic department and make them aware of it? Did you pick up the phone and call your local city council member and say this is a problem? Did you take photos? Did you build a case? See, elections is about building a case for what you want, why you want it, and why it is in the best interest of your neighborhood, of your community, of your um, of the people that you care about. Why it's in their best interest that we make these particular changes. So if that situation took place, you need to notify traffic and let them know that there have been a number of accidents. You need to let them know that these were the outcomes of those accidents. There were so many injuries, there were so many deaths. Um, it tied up traffic for 2 or 3 hours. Everything that you can possibly think of that had an impact because of that accident. Tell them if they had to reroute and have detours to get people back to their places of back to their homes, etc. Those are the things that you want to know about politics, and whether you're playing in the major league or whether you're playing in the minor league. It is critically important for you to be engaged, because if you're not, someone else is. And if they're engaged and they're talking about what their concerns are, if they're making the city, local government aware of their issues and their concerns, then they're going to be the ones that receive a response. They're going to be the ones that get their needs addressed, and you will be overlooked, dismissed, or marginalized. That's playing in the minor league. The other thing is, you have to keep in mind that when you're playing in the minor league, anyone that do not challenge elected officials on how they vote, anyone who's sitting at home and the council meetings are on and you never watch them live, you never go down to the council chambers, or you never watch them later on. Because, see, you don't necessarily have to be at every city council meeting, but what you can do is you can record the council meeting, or you can go back and click on vbgov.com and look at it later, and then look at how the city council members are voting on issues that you care about. And if these folks are voting against your best interests, if you don't pick up the phone and call them and challenge them about their vote, then they're just going to keep on doing business as usual. And say, for instance, you did decide you're going to call, but you didn't get any results. If you're playing in the minor league, you just be dismissive. You go back and you sit down and you say you can't get anything done. But I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about playing in the major league when these situations occur. The other thing is, you don't challenge the elected officials on where your tax dollars are spent or how they are spent, what they are spent on. That's playing in the minor league. If you're not challenging your elected officials about how they're spending the money that you contribute to the treasury of the city of Virginia Beach, or your state legislature, or your federal government, then that's playing in the minor league, and the illness is on you to research, get the information, and then challenge how your money is being spent. The other thing is, when you're playing in the minor league, you very, very rarely collaborate with others to move your agenda forward. If they are like-minded people and you see that in your community the sidewalks haven't been addressed, uh, uh, the elderly are tripping because there's a hole or a gap in a sidewalk, and you find that the elderly are tripping over that, then guess what? Your community alone is not the only one that's suffering from that. There are other people that's living around that may not look like you, but are also concerned about that same issue. So you want to talk to them and you want them to also address city council. And that's just simply by signing up, to let people know that you want to speak before council, and you go in and you address your concerns. And that is when, uh, if you're not engaged, you're playing in the minor league. If you're not collaborating, you're playing in the minor league. If you're not doing anything to move the things that you're concerned about, your agenda, your concerns within your community, within your neighborhood, um, then you're playing in the minor league. And we've been voting way too long to still be playing in the minor league. Most of the time, you never even have a written agenda. You think about things that you care about, but you never put them in writing. You never send a message to your council member. You never send a message to your state legislator or your state senator or your state delegate or your national senators or your congress people. You don't send them letters. You don't send letters to the president of the United States. I think I've received a letter from the presidents of the United States since George H.W. Bush because I've sent letters to them. From time to time, I'll look around and boom, I'll find another letter from President Clinton or President George W. Bush or President Obama, or I believe I already have one from President Biden, and he hasn't even been in there that long. And so those are things that are also important because that one letter from a constituent, I believe they say it calculates to about 10,000 people just receiving one letter from someone like yourself. So, believe it or not, those letters are very, very important. And if you're not sending them, you are playing in the minor league. Okay. The other thing is you don't have an accountability measurement bar. So, when it comes to holding people accountable, again, if you want a pothole fixed and it's taken them 3, 4, 5 years, and the same people are still on council after 3, 4, 5 years, and you reached out to them, that's a way to hold them accountable. Give them a report card. Tell them you get an F because there's no sense for a pothole to last 3, 4, 5 years. So that's a way of measuring and holding people accountable. You must have measurements and you must determine um, a system to measure the things that are right and the things that are wrong. And those measurements can't necessarily always be yes or no. They could be there's been progression, or there has been no progression, or it was repaired, or I feel good about it because they put forth the effort. They picked up the phone, they called me, they let me know these are my that I know what your concerns are and I'm working on it. They've advised you as to who the um, departments that are responsible for addressing your concern and helping to resolve your concern. Those are all ways to measure whether or not the people who you put in charge, who you elected to office, are working in your best interest. So, for instance, if you find that you have a situation where you call 911 because there's a fire in your house, and instead of and you're 10 minutes away from the fire station, but it takes them an hour and a half to get to your house, but 10 minutes to get to someone else's house, that's something you can measure because you can write down this is what time I called, This is the response I received. This is how long it took them to get to my house. My house burned completely down while they went and put out the fire somewhere else. Very measurable. You can then say to the city, to your elected official, that that's not acceptable behavior. If there's a situation and you're calling people to resolve those issues, your tax dollars are paying for the fire department, the police department, the EMS. All of those things are being paid by your tax dollars. Therefore, when you call, you need to receive a response and a prompt response. How often do you follow up with elected officials, even when you have an agenda or a list of demands? How often do you follow up? That's playing in the minor league. If you have an agenda, you have a list of demands, but you don't follow up with the officials, you never provide. You have the demand, but you never gave it to them. You have things that you care about, but you never let anybody know, and you never followed up about those issues. And then there are times when you gave them the issues, but you still never followed up. And time goes by, and then you're upset. Okay, you're playing in the minor league when you almost never ever punish an elected official when they operate against you, your neighbor, your community, or your best interests. That's playing in the minor league. So when we're looking at elections, because most of the time we look at elections and we think, oh gosh, we went down and we voted, and wow, this is fantastic. That's just the beginning, is you voted. The real deal is, did you stay engaged? Henderson,
Yes.
how often do you go down to city council meetings or call people with regards to concerns that you have?
Quite often when I haven't been because of the COVID, but before the COVID, I would always frequent city council on Tuesdays on
Mhm,
occasions, and now I do call and ask questions on specific things that affecting us in the Afro American community
mhm,
to try to get some insight on why is this going on, and you know how come
mhm.
it's not known to the community as a whole.
Absolutely. And see, that's playing in the major leagues. I did
Mm,
that because I wanted people to actually kind of see and hear
mm,
uh, what it sounds like and what it looks like when people are playing in the major league.
mm,
Henderson just shared with you. He goes to city council meetings. He pick up the phone. He addresses the needs of the community. He calls them out when there are things that are going on that he sees that the city council or other persons are not addressing as it pertains to the Black community. That's playing in the minor league. And so it's up to all of us. No one person can do everything, and we cannot rely on one organization or two organizations to fix the problems. It takes the community as a whole to get engaged and make sure that we let people know that we have concerns. And so today, this is what I'm trying to help you to do. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because we just had an election on November the 8th. And now we're getting ready to have another election on January the 10th. This is called a special election. Keep in mind, there are a lot of elections. There are special elections. There are general elections. There are primary elections. And so you want to make sure that during election season, that you stay engaged. You want to stay engaged before the election, you want to stay engaged during the election, but you also want to stay engaged once the election is over. Because if you don't continue to engage elected officials, you will find that they will be very dismissive, they will marginalize you, And even when you are engaged, if you saw our city council meeting the other night, you saw a bunch of people after the public has spoken, after the voters has spoken, deciding that they're going to do something different, no matter what anybody said. Well, that's a problem. And if you see that as a problem, if you see that um, our elected officials are deciding to make uh, these changes that have no legitimate reason, then you need to get engaged. You need to pick up the phone. You need to call your family. You need to call your friends. You need to call them up and call them out and say, that's unacceptable. If the public came down and spoke, you can't determine who the public is. Now, just because your friends didn't get down there, that is not the responsibility of the rest of the citizenry. The citizens that came down and spoke, because, as a matter of fact, Tuesday was them asking, do you want a hearing? And the public came down and said, no, you don't need a hearing. But even with that, they still decided that they wanted a hearing because they were the elected official. Well, either you're going to listen to the public or you're not. So, what was the point of letting everybody know that you're going to have a meeting to address whether you were going to have a public hearing or not? If when the public came down and said no to you, you still decide that you're going to do whatever you want to do. Okay. So playing in the minor league means you stay engaged. That means after they've decided that they're going to vote the way they want to vote and they're going to have what they want to have, we still have to continue to stay engaged. And how do we do that? We still have to call them up. We still have to follow up. We still have to remind them that on December the 31st, many of you have lost your job. November the 8th election said to persons who were currently sitting on city council, everybody had the same option. They had the option to elect the person that was currently on city council or remove them from office. Well, two of the kind of longest serving, two of the longest serving members, they were the longest ever serving, but they had served for a number of years. They were removed from office. Well, if you ask any citizen with regards to the election, that would tell them that the public did speak. And they said, we don't want you serving as city council member anymore. And now that we have the option to elect people of our choice, we can remove you from office and elect others to serve in your place. That's playing in the major league, is when you can take a long serving council member and remove them from office. When you can take a long serving person on school boards, city council, House of Delegates, state senate, all of those persons, when you can remove them, then that's the public speaking. And so our city council decided that no, that's not good enough. We're going to make our own decision and we're going to change the script and we're going to decide that we're going to do whatever we want to do, regardless of whether or not the people have spoken. Well, that's offensive. It should be offensive to every single solitary citizen in the city, because if they did it this time, the next time it might be an issue that you care about. And when you're saying to them that, no, I don't want this, they basically are saying to us, they will do what they want to do, regardless of what the citizenry say to us. So, with that being said, we're going to go and flip over to playing in the major league.
All right.
Let's play in the major league, okay? Let's talk about politics in the major league versus the minor league. One, know your issues. What are your issues? Is your issue housing? Is your issue the citizen review board? Is your issue homelessness? Is your issue transportation? Whatever your issue is, know your issue and fight for your issue, because you're not going to win if you go down and you're half stepping, or if you go down and you're by yourself. So make sure that you know your issues, because then you can better address that concern. You can bring facts, figures, etc., to address that concern, and you can push the city council members or any elected official to vote in your best interest. Let's say homelessness is an issue for you, and you're concerned about so many people being homeless in your local city. If that is your issue, first and foremost, you want to know what homelessness, why there is a cause for homelessness. Is it because people have medical issues which cause them to be homeless, so they weren't able to work, and because they weren't able to work, they weren't able to get a income, and because they're not able to have an income, they're not able to provide and pay for housing? Is the issue um, a veteran who is suffering from PTSD, and therefore is creating a problem in terms of him or her being able to communicate or being able to adjust now that they're back in a non-confrontational situation? While they were at war, they had a whole different mindset. They had a way to defend themselves because they were at war. But now that they're back, they're no longer at war, so their mindset is very different. Trying to operate and integrate in the situation is very different. The other thing that you want to look at is how many homeless shelters are available. How many people are homeless? So you want to know your numbers, and then you want to know what services are being provided. And then, after doing the math, doing the numbers, you can determine how many more shelters would be um, good for Virginia Beach to have in order to reduce or eliminate some of the homelessness. Keep in mind, with any situation, you can almost never solve the entire problem, but you can help make things better. Okay, so know your issues. The other thing is, you want to know your candidates. To go to the polls and vote and you don't know the candidate, that can prove to be a problem. Okay, because a lot of times you may vote against your own interest, because perhaps you vote simply based upon party affiliation. You vote based upon, well, I have a business, I want to make sure that my business can thrive, and this group said that they're pro business. But then you find out that they're so against so many other things. While you have a business, you find yourself being a supporter of family members because they don't have a business, and the laws that are being passed are detrimental to family members. So your business is not doing all that it can do, or making all the money that it can make in order to support yourself, your family, and your extended family. So them being pro business doesn't always help the whole. It only helps a small portion of people, which ultimately creates other um, things that are detrimental and that are financially burdensome to you as an individual or as a family. And I know personally, because I dealt with that. I've had family members that have stayed with me pretty much ever since I've owned my homes, and that has been over a number of years, where they have gone through a tough time or whatever, and there weren't the services that was available that they needed on a temporary basis, not a permanent basis, but just a temporary basis. So know your issues and know whether or not where these candidates stand is in your best interest. We have an upcoming election, a special election on January 10th. We have two candidates, Mr. Aaron Rouse and Lieutenant Commander retired Kelvin Adams. Now, when I looked at the two candidates, very similar. One is a former professional football player, actually grew up here. The other one is a military person who ultimately retired here. And so one has a better idea and more experience with the city of Virginia Beach than the other candidate. One of the things that was disturbing by Mr. Adams was his tough on crime message. And that immediately was like, whoa. He didn't say, I want to prevent crime. He did not say, I want to provide support and services and access. And he didn't say any of that. He simply said he was going to be tough on crime. And of course, because I'm a little bit older than many of you who may be listening now or will listen later, tough on crime means something very different to our community. It means just lock them up, throw away the key. It doesn't mean rehabilitation. It does not mean prevention. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means if you commit a crime, let me give you the longest sentence possible. That is troubling to me, especially now that we've gone through COVID and people are having all types of medical issues, mental issues, needing all types of support. And they come outside and you police officer may snap at them and their reaction may not be the reaction that the police officer wants. So therefore he throws handcuffs on them and say I'm tough on crime because that behavior was something that I can call a misdemeanor or what have you. And so be careful when these politicians put their information out and use certain buzzwords because those buzzwords don't necessarily help you or are in your best interest. How about you, Henderson?
Well, because I've been in those positions, tough on crime. I've been locked up in Virginia Beach several times. And I guess because they can't talk to me any kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
And if I speak to them, they want to put me in on arrest. I'm not yelling. I'm not using profanity. I just
Mm-hmm.
said I didn't do that.
Right.
Okay. So tough on crime, like you said, those are buzzwords. I've been
Mm-hmm.
in a courtroom and in Norfolk when I was managing another club, and the lady came in and said these undesirable characters in in the neighborhood, and the judge said, "What did you say?"
Right.
You said, "Look, don't you ever come in my court with using those kind of words. Matter of
Mm-hmm.
fact, this case is dismissed. I
Right.
don't never want to see you in my courtroom again."
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, people don't understand. You ain't got to do nothing wrong. You just got to
Exactly.
be you just got to get with the wrong person that I had a bad day, and you fit the bill.
Exactly. Wrong person, wrong time, wrong day, wrong situation, and the buzzwords can change everything.
Oh yeah.
Um, and so know your issues, know the candidates, and know the issues and where they stand on um, situations. Also, it's important if you're going to play in the major league that you know your elected officials. You know your council members, you know your school board members, and you also know your constitutional officers. That is your sheriff, that person that runs the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. That's the person that runs the clerk of the courts, okay, because they're the ones that work with the docket and make sure that all of these things take place. Your commissioner of revenue, your treasurer. You want to know who these people are. I don't care if you have to go to your um, local city and press the button for elected officials and print their pictures out so you know who these people are in your community and read about it. Read about what the Commissioner of Revenue does. Read about what the City Treasurer does. Read about what the Commonwealth Attorney's Office does. Because we live in a city where the Commonwealth Attorney and the sheriff are brothers. So the Commonwealth Attorney decides whether or not he's going to prosecute crime, and his brother locks the people up that he prosecutes.
Hello.
Sounds a little shady to me. So
Well,
that's why it's important that you know who these people are and who they're representing. And so what we want with this show today is just try to give you some nuggets. I'm not trying to tell you everything. I'm just trying to give you some information, provide you some information in simple terms. And I do that because everybody is not at the same level. And I think that when people are speaking, they don't have to always use the $1,000,000 word, okay? They can just simply say simple language, common sense language, that whether you have 5 degrees or no degree, everybody can understand it. So get to know your elected officials. The other thing you want to do is you want to build relationships with all sides of the aisle, folks you like as well as folks that you don't like. Because guess what? Both of them make decisions as it pertains to you, as it pertains to your community, and as it pertains to the generations that's coming forth. Because a lot of the decisions that they're making down now will impact 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. So therefore, when you're looking at elected officials, you want to build relationships with them. Even when you don't like them, because sometimes you may sway them to vote in your interests. So again, I'm talking about the major league now. All right, I gave you some little nuggets on the minor league, but on the major league, you want to make sure that you talk to everybody, even the ones that you don't like, even the ones that may not be affiliated with the same political party that you are. Hello, Teresa. Thank you for watching. Even if you disagree with them, guess what? The people really still have the most power. So, what you can do is you can build relationships with other people and then go back to that council member or that school board member and continue to push and leverage until you can get your agenda through. Because you should have so many people who believe and are like-minded like you. And depending upon how many it is, that will determine how many more people you need to get the vote passed. In our city, we have 11 on our council and 11 on our school board, which means in order to have a majority, you always have to get 6 people to vote the way that you want. So if you have 3 members of city council that you can count on voting the way you want all the time, remind them that your city council member need to be able to convince one person. Those 3 people need to be able to convince one person each. And then you as a body, as a group, the citizenry, you need to be putting pressure on those folks as well, so that ultimately you get your 6 votes, you get your majority. Okay, playing in the major league, you must have a written agenda of what it is that you want. These are items that you want your council members to pass in order to change the way your neighborhood looks, in order to change the way your community looks. So if you're living in an area and they have 15 liquor stores in a 3-block radius, you may want to find out who your council member is. That's why it's important to know who your council member is. And if that council member is not willing to address your concern, then you want to talk to some of the other council members, and you need to go to them and say, hey, if we got this many liquor stores in the community, guess what? There's a bigger chance of crime increasing because of the number of people with access to alcohol, well, guess what? You know that building that you wanted to build or that company that you wanted to come to the city, they're probably not going to come. So know how to use the messaging. If they see a tick in crime, they can talk all they want about, well, they're going to be located off a corporate landing, or they're going to be located in Dam Neck or whatever. Those corporations that want to come here, they don't just look at the corporate landing area, they look at the whole entire city as a whole. So what you want to do is you want to apply pressure and say why it's important that they don't have all the liquor stores or all the um, title loan companies and those type of companies located in a certain area. Those are the type of things that you as a citizen can do for yourself. The other thing, when you're playing in the major league, you want to grade the officials. You want to grade them. You want to say this person gets an A, B, C, D, E, or F, whichever one you use. I use both. Sometimes I give them big fat F. Sometimes I give them a big fat E. But you want to be able to grade them. And you want to be able to grade them on an ongoing basis. Do not grade those officials one time and then say, okay, I'm done. No. You want to keep up with how they're voting on issues, and you want to grade them on how they are performing. Other ways that you can grade them, and I see you got something on your mind, Henderson.
Yeah.
So go ahead and share that with us.
Oh, well, I try not to, get
This
too.
look, this is a community show.
You're right, right, right. Well, when dealing with political officials, I'm not a lunch person. Let's go to lunch.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Only thing I want you to do is what you say you're going to do for the community.
Absolutely.
That's my lunch. My lunch is that a young person should be able to go to a rec center and enjoy the elements that's on in the recreation center, the equipment there. But you're now telling me something else is being taken place, so I will have to address that,
Mm-hmm.
in the new year with the new officials. But we come together and we go out here, we march, and the disparity study couldn't have been done without the help of NFL Bruce Smith.
Smith, right.
And you still holding Rudy in as hostage. And here's a businessman, a builder,
Mm-hmm.
and you talking about turning it into a park. It's like you're really saying, I'd rather for it to be a park than for you to put a business there, for you to
Right.
have a business. Let's do it this way. Why don't you let him take it and build his business there and let him, put a little park there?
Absolutely.
So that's killing two birds with one stone. But
Mm-hmm.
we as the community have to get down there and support him to make them say, hey, wait a minute, how come you getting all these other builders? You just paid $12 million. Was it for
a lawsuit?
Not for the lawsuit. No, that's for the Dairy Queen.
Oh yeah, Dairy Queen. They did that too.
Queen, and we get these lawsuits in. But here's a man that's trying to bring a positive situation that
to our community,
to the community, and put people to work. He ain't gonna just put Afro Americans to work. I mean, the melting pot of the community is Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, everybody. And when we sit here and keep dancing with the same thing, spending the citizens of Virginia Beach tax money, not to agree, but you agree with everybody else.
Right.
That ain't making sense to me.
That doesn't make any sense at all. The other thing is, when we hold our elected officials accountable, this has to be measurable. Okay. It's important that these are measurable things. You can use for an example. How often does the elected official visit the neighborhood, visit the community. And I'm not talking about when there's an event going on. How about him holding a town hall? How
Yeah.
often does the elected official hold a town hall in your community? And then make sure that you get the information. They hold town halls, and it turns out you find out about 2 or 3 weeks later, and you're like, wait a minute, I live in that community. I didn't hear anything about it.
Yep.
Okay. And the bottom line is we're all on the voter rolls. We're on the voter rolls. So if we're on the voter rolls, guess what? They can find us. They can get in touch with us. They can email us, or what have you. But
Every
they have
day.
a way of contacting us. So
Yeah.
the fact that they are holding town hall meetings and then we're not invited, hold them accountable. Check them, call them up, check them. You
Yeah.
have to check these people, because if you don't, they're going to keep doing what they're doing. Um, Again, they can have town hall meetings. They can come to events that the community does, but they can also do their own events. I live in the Bayside district. There's a library in the Bayside district. There's a recreation center in the Bayside district. There are parks in the Bayside districts. A council member can hold an event at any one of those places. Of course, they can always hold events at local churches and things of that nature in order to get information out. But there are ways that they can ensure that um, the community is well aware of what is going on. They can also send out information with regards to any plans that the city has, with regards to any development that may be taking place in your community. They can send out information with regards to any new laws that they're planning to put on the books, so that you have time to voice your opinion with regards to that. That is their responsibility. You can grade them on when you look at the city council agenda and something pops up and you're like, wait a minute, I live in that district. I don't recall anybody saying anything to me about that. So again, playing in the major leagues means you want to hold these people accountable. The other thing, when you're playing in the major league, you want to know the city departments and who's running, who's head of those departments, who's head of the economic department, who's head of the purchasing department. You want to know who's head of um, the public works, public utilities, because all of those things affect you on a regular basis. All of those various departments. Who runs the convention center? Who's the person that takes care of, you know, all these other departments that are within the city? The city of Virginia Beach has, I forgot how many number of employees, but it's thousands. They have thousands of employees in the city of Virginia Beach. And so we need to know what city departments are out there. Um, Fire department, sheriff department, those are city departments. Take a look at them. What does their diversity look like? When I went to the recent town hall meeting that was held in my district in Bayside, the highest ranking Black person on the police department is a sergeant, not a captain, not a deputy chief, but a sergeant, not a lieutenant. I don't think there's a lieutenant. I think the highest is a sergeant. I
Mm.
might be wrong. There may be one lieutenant, but that's a problem. And those are the type of things that when you get to know your city, you know the departments, you can then ask valid questions with regards to this, to your respective cities. So what I'm sharing with you today is something that you can use whether or not you live in Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Chesapeake, or all the way out to the West Coast, because you want to change how we do business, because this is going to affect us long term. Um, the other thing is that I always like to say when you plan in the major league is follow up, follow up, follow up. Because if you ask a question one time and they never hear from you again, they dismiss it. So if you're going to play in the major league, you want to follow up. And whether it's you or somebody in your posse or what have you, you want to make sure that if you call one day, you might have someone else call another day. You may have someone else call the next day. But all of you should be saying the same thing. And all of you should say to them that, I'm calling you because I know that Mrs. Allen called you with regards to this issue, and it's something that I'm concerned about as well. And I also know that Miss Murray and Miss Williams also called you about that issue. What you're doing there is you're leveraging your voice. You are leveraging your voice. And so you want to make sure that when you're playing in the major league, as it pertains to politics, that you're always putting on the pressure to get things passed to your advantage. One of the things that I want to remind you of is no one is responsible for doing everything for you. Okay. Elected officials are responsible for working on your behalf, but you are responsible for doing some of the things on your own. And that is what I'm talking about when I say, when you call, you also have already spoken with your team of people, and their responsibility is to give a call. The next person's responsibility is to call. Someone else's responsibility may be to send an email. Someone else's responsibility may be to write a letter. And so now you have all of these things working together in concert with one another in order to get what you need done on behalf of yourself, on behalf of the community. Again, this is Georgia Allen, GA for Justice, every Thursday at 12 noon. Just want to do a final closing. We're coming up on closing time.
Yeah.
Elections are important. Every last one of them. A lot of people want to say the president is the election that is important, but those local elections affect your day-to-day life. The most important person on election day is the voter, not the candidate, but the voter. The candidate is important, but the most important person is the voter. Okay, because as you vote, you can determine who's going into office or who's not. Okay, you can also determine in some cases is who you're going to remove from office, because sometimes people need to be removed from office, which is what we did this year when we removed a couple people from city council.
Hello.
Okay.
Get out of here. See you. And a few
All
more
right.
going next year.
Exactly. Again, make sure that you stay engaged. This is a process. It is not a one and done. It is a process. So you want to participate. You want to be engaged. You want to continue to go. And the thing that is so important, stop going to council, city council, and school board meetings alone. Get your partner. Ride together. Okay? Ride together. Why? Because it allows you to build some camaraderie. It allows you to have these conversations before you ever get to the council meeting or before you ever get to the school board meeting. And guess what? As you're discussing some of the situations, you find out something new, and the person you're riding with may find out something new. And so now you've shared and educated each other, and that would not happen if you keep driving to the council meetings alone. So make sure that whenever possible, you bring a team of people with you. And if you can, wear the same colors. And when you go up to speak, say, "Hi, I'm from this community and I have 10 people with me tonight. Would you please stand?" And then finish your message and come and sit down. That allows you to push and leverage your power. Okay. Your candidate winning an election is not a win until you master the ability to get that winning candidate to pass the policy that will help your community, that will help your neighborhood, that will help your family, and help with the needs that you have. So just winning an election alone is not enough. If they're not passing policy, if they're not passing legislation, if they're not doing any of those things, that is not enough simply to win an election. So again, today is about politics. Are we going to play in the major league or are we going to play in the minor league? The question is to you, to the listening audience, because for so long we have gone to the polls, we have voted, we've become frustrated, we think that they're not doing enough, they're not doing it fast enough. But what we've done is we've interrupted our own progress. And you say, well, what do you mean by that, Georgia? Well, you vote and then you don't vote. You vote and you don't vote. So you get enough people in there to pass a piece of legislation, but you don't get enough people in there to widen and build on that legislation. So you got a piece of it passed, but you could have gotten the whole pie if you had added to the number of people on your council, on your school board, in your Congress, but you never do the math. You allow yourself to be frustrated because you didn't get everything at one time. Well, we don't always get everything at one time. We sometimes get it piecemeal. But guess what? If we want to play in the major league, we're going to have to do something different. This is December. We're coming up on Kwanzaa. We're coming up on Christmas. I'm always excited about Kwanzaa because it's a holiday. I almost hate to call it a holiday because it's a principle. It's based on principles more than anything else. And I think that we need to get back to simple principles of collective work and responsibility. And so we have an opportunity to do major things, but we need to be collectively working together and we need to take responsibility. Thank you so much for joining us today. Again, I'm Georgia F. Allen, GA for Justice. And every Thursday at 12 noon, we invite you to come and listen to us.
No
Politics, major versus minor leagues. Take care and have a great week.
Great day, y'all. Thank y'all for watching. And please share this video with people in Virginia Beach and throughout your Facebook and Instagram pages. Until next Thursday at 12 noon, you've been watching GA for Justice with the former president of the Virginia Beach NAACP. Thank you for watching.